What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Bubz, back at you in a reaction video, and this time I'm reacting on the video of a fight I was watching this weekend, and it didn't really go the way I thought it would have went, and I'm trying to watch the video to see, like, how it went the way it did, because, this guy right here got knocked unconscious and stuff, so I'm just trying to figure out, he got hit, doof, a couple of times, but I'm trying to figure out, what really turned him off to where, you know, he was unconscious that long and stuff like that. He looked like the guy was in another world for a little bit, you know what I mean? Like, is he put him to that place, where you don't really want to be when you get knocked out? I'm watching this video right here because this guy right here, I find him very, very knowledgeable about what he's doing, and he breaks it down to where anybody can sit down and watch any one of his videos and understand, oh, well, he did this when he jumped, and that's how he tore his ACL, or he threw the punch, and as he threw the punch, his arm came out, or he hit him so hard with the leg kick, his body went out, and this is a spasm. Like, guy's really good and reputable for what I think he's reputable for what he's done, and I like watching him. There's probably other guys out there and stuff, but this right here is my go-to guy. He's my go-to guy whenever something goes on in sports. Like, he's been breaking down a lot of MMA fights as soon as they happen. So, I like it, because, you're watching these fights and, maybe, 2-3 hours after, the guy drops a video or something like that. So, it's pretty good to have the guy do it real fast and stuff. So, with that being said, let's go into this video.
Adesanya exacted revenge at UFC 287, knocking out Alex Pereira, and in this video we're going to talk about the knockout anatomy of exactly what happened here. Welcome back, everybody. I'm Dr. Brain Sutterer, and my goal in this channel is to help teach you about the medical side of the sports world. And you all really seem to enjoy my UFC medical breakdown, so let's take a look at what happened here tonight at UFC 287. The first part I want to talk about is the initial punch from Adesanya and the risk of potential facial trauma or fractures to Pereira. Here we can see as Izzy's right comes in. It seems,
but as you see right here, his hands are down, and he did this the first time he fought. His hands were down. They should have been up blocking him. I don't understand why he does this. I know Oscar Wolverine does the same exact thing. Why do you guys fucking do that? You guys are world-class kickboxers. Why the fuck are your hands down?
Seems to land kind of on the left outer portion of Pereira's face. As Pereira sort of rotates through here as a result of the impact, we can even see a little bit of this kind of indentation on the side of his face. And that area that we're looking at on the side of his face is an area called the zygomatic process. It's an area of the face that can easily be broken whenever you have some sort of facial trauma or a punch to the face. If we wind this clip up a little bit before, you can see on Pereira's right side how there's this nice kind of round, solid contour to this zygomatic process on the right side of his face. But then after this punch comes in from Izzy and he kind of rotates away, it almost looks like there's a little bit of indentation. Now, I don't know if that's necessarily a sign that there was a fracture, but we obviously are going to be concerned and look out for some potential facial trauma with an injury to that zygomatic bone from that first punch. With our biodigital anatomy tool here, these are the key bones of the face. And this one that I've highlighted here is in particular the zygomatic bone. Nearby in this area, we have the sphenoid bone, which is really thin, and it's actually part of why it's so risky to get punched in the side of the face because of how that bone is so thin in protecting the brain and some key blood vessels we'll talk about in a minute. We then have the temporal bone, which sits basically directly behind the ear. We're going to have the mandible, which is the lower portion of the jaw, and then the maxilla. And so this whole area where everything comes together is this zygomatic process. You can feel it on yourself really clearly. And our body's actually designed in a really smart way because that zygomatic process is there in part to actually protect our eye. You can imagine if that protrusion was not there whenever that punch comes in from Adesanya, all that's going to be left is the orbit.
See, I wonder if he's going to tell us how much pressure it takes to break this, because it seems like this is protecting your jawline. Because when you like this, it seems like it's protecting this. I want to know how much it takes to break that thing right there.
It's going to be the eye socket and potential major trauma to the eye. So having this protrusion, it's almost like in an F1 car where they have that halo structure that goes over the top of the driver. It's designed to be there to kind of protect the orbit, protect the eye, and take some of that blow, take some of that trauma to spare the eyeball. So looking at this again with our triple box, focus on that zygomatic bone, that zygomatic process on the left side of Pereira's face.
Just think about your face
as
right
Izzy's
here.
punch comes in, it's going to land square on that zygomatic process. Thankfully,
Look at
it
his
does
lips.
its job. It protects the eye, but could potentially result in facial trauma or facial fracture. And we can even see as Pereira's head kind of loops around here, a little bit of maybe indentation there. Hopefully not, but potentially suggesting a fracture to that area of the face. Next, we can't forget about how the person throwing the punch in this situation could also potentially have some key structures in the hand be injured based on the way that they throw that punch. And we'll talk about that risk to Adesanya, but first, a quick word from the sponsor of today's video. This video is sponsored by Raycon, the makers of my favorite pair of earbuds, the Everyday Earbud. Affordable and technology have long been associated with fracture, and a boxer fracture is a break specifically at the neck of the fifth metatarsal. And we see them commonly in boxers because of the way that they throw a punch. Certainly the gloves are going to be there to hopefully protect that from happening with Adesanya here,
So
but that would be one potential risk of throwing a punch where you're striking directly on a hard surface like we just talked about of that zygomatic process. The risk here for Adesanya would be that potential boxer fracture. Looking at our biodigital anatomy tool for the hands, the metacarpals are going to be the bones that basically run through the palm of the hand. So the thumb is going to be the first, second, third, fourth, and the pinky is going to be the fifth metacarpal. A boxer fracture is specifically a fracture at the neck, which is right here on this fifth metacarpal.
Oh my God, on the
And
pinky?
the reason why it happens so commonly in boxers is because, particularly if they're right-handed, as you punch across, you tend to be coming across to where your fifth metacarpal,
your
the
pinky is
outside of
just
your
right
hand,
there, I gotcha.
is what delivers that load and takes a lot of the blow. You don't punch necessarily straight forward. You punch kind of coming across, and so then most of the majority of the impact is going to go through that fifth metacarpal, potentially leading to a fracture in this specific position called a boxer fracture. Now, the nice thing about boxers fractures is you can really tolerate a lot of angulation in the bone, meaning how angled those two pieces are of the break before you need to do something like a surgery. So even if a fighter does have an injury like this, thankfully, it's not the worst type of fracture that we could see in the hand and something that oftentimes doesn't even require an operation.
Yeah, what are these two ball things right here? Is you gonna talk about these right here? Cause these shits are weirding me out right now. Like, what the hell are these things? I'm looking at my finger. I'm trying to figure out what the hell that is on my finger. I don't know. I don't see two balls on my finger.
So triple
I
box
hope not.
again, focusing on that fifth metacarpal as Izzy throws that right across. He's going to make first contact with the outer portion of his hand, with that fifth metacarpal taking the majority of the load, drops him down to the ground. And I want to look back at that anatomy of the facial bones to talk about why a punch to the side of the head like this can also be potentially serious because of some unique anatomy. Punches to the side of the head are in part really dangerous because of how thin the bones are on the side of the head, but also because of a blood vessel that sits beneath the temporal bone called the middle meningeal artery. This is, of course, blood that's coming
Say that 10 times fast. Middle meningeal
up from the heart going up to the brain. And this middle meningeal artery sits kind of right next to
that's a
that bone
dangerous
that
one.
protects on the side of your face. If you have a fracture to that bone on the side of the face, you can potentially injure that middle meningeal artery. And that can lead to a specific type of bleeding in the brain called an epidural hematoma. A subdural hematoma is when the veins on the outside of the brain burst, and an epidural hematoma is when one of these arteries or blood vessels, usually this middle meningeal artery. If we look at kind of where the ear is positioned, this is right around that spot where that second punch came in from Adesanya. So this is why we worry about punches to the side of the head. It's similar to why we worry about punches to the back of the skull. At the back of the skull, we worry about injuring the spinal cord. At the side of the head, we worry about injuring these blood vessels that run really close to the bone. If you break the bone, you can injure the blood vessel, and injuring the blood vessel can lead to bleeding in the brain, which can obviously be very serious. You do have all of your middle and inner ear structures here on the side of the head, the vestibular system that helps with your balance and your coordination. And so certainly a shot to the side of the head in this area can also just throw off your balance, throw off your coordination because of how it can alter all that circuitry deeper inside your ear. So that's it for the video, everybody.
So basically, he hit him in the sweet spot other than the temple, it seems like. So now everybody, now viewers, you know. Don't get hit here over here in your face. That motherfucker. This shit right here, you get hit over here, guys. You dunzo from down unzo, as my brother was saying. That's some crazy stuff, man. Cause he hit him with that shit in the first fight too. That sticky jab, bro. Motherfucking didn't watch out for it, yo. You know, I hope the third time they fight, like, it goes past the second round, maybe goes into the fifth round again, man. Be some good stuff. And with that being said, always remember, hit that like, hit the subscribe button, and hit that little bell notification at the top for me, alright, everybody? I'm gonna be out. Peace. I love you guys.